Have you ever stopped to think that sometimes the phrase that changes the course of your life doesn't come wrapped in motivation, but in a silent shock of reality? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. Imagine the following scene. You enter a room, still trying to understand why you were called, and before even sitting down, Sharkston, with that look that mixes respect and analysis, drops the phrase that cuts through the air like a blade. If you didn't have 250K, I wouldn't have even called you. The impact is immediate. You feel the power of those words because you realize it's not arrogance, it's not contempt, and it's not exclusion. It's a filter. It's an invitation that not everyone receives. It's the door that separates those who play at investing from those who truly begin to play the game of building real wealth. And perhaps you've already experienced this without realizing it. That moment when someone experienced looks at you differently, as if assessing whether you're ready for something bigger. But why this invisible mark? This very specific number, 250,000. Why has this value become, for so many serious investors, a watershed moment? Is there really a tipping point that transforms you, without warning, from a beginner into someone who finally has access to the world of sharks? The answer requires courage to hear, and if you're here, it's because you've already begun this journey. The truth is, some invitations seem simple, almost banal, but they carry a message that many never receive. You've proven you know how to play. And when Sharkston says that, he's not just talking about accumulated money, but about the mindset you've built to get there. Discipline, consistency, long-term vision, choices that most people don't have the patience to make. The phrase is harsh, but it's also a silent acknowledgement. It's as if he's saying, now you can enter, because now you understand the rules that many people ignore. And that makes you think, how many opportunities have you missed because you hadn't yet reached that level of maturity? How many pieces of advice? How many opportunities? How many doors remained closed simply because you didn't yet have the 250K that guarantee respect within the market? Have you ever noticed that the world of finance isn't just driven by numbers, but by signals? And reaching that value is one of those signals. That's when the shark's door opens. That's when those opportunities that don't appear in ads begin to emerge. Those conversations that never reach beginners. And those mentorships that only exist for those who truly have experience in the game. Because the market observes. It knows who is ready. It knows who just wants shortcuts. And when you cross that line, that invisible milestone of 250,000, something in your journey changes without you needing to announce anything. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject because this door only opens after this point. It's the kind of revelation that completely transforms the way you see the world of investing. And when you begin to understand that it's not just about accumulating money, but about crossing a mental boundary that few manage to cross, something inside you awakens. Because deep down, every investor who reaches 250K knows that this number didn't fall from the sky. It's the result of sleepless nights, difficult decisions, months of silent discipline, and choices that almost no one sees. And perhaps, as you listen to this, something inside you is making sense. Perhaps even bringing back memories of moments when you also needed to prove to yourself that you were ready for the next level. By the way, if this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. It could be an experience, a question, even a feeling that arose while you were listening to this part. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content, and that really makes a difference. And since we're having such a direct, honest conversation, I'd like to ask you something simple, but which completely changes the reach of this type of message. Like the video right now. It may seem like a small thing, but each like shows the algorithm that this topic matters, that more people should hear about mindset, discipline, and building real wealth. And if you're here, connecting with this idea, it's because it speaks to you in some way. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because this journey doesn't end here. There's a lot of profound, powerful, and transformative stuff that we're still going to explore together. And I want you to be a part of it from the beginning. And while you do that, take a deep breath and realize how curious it is that a simple phrase, said at the right moment, has the power to flip a whole switch inside us. Because when someone like Sharkston looks you in the eye and says, if you didn't have 250K, I wouldn't have even called you. It's not about exclusion. It's about recognition. about seeing something in you that perhaps you yourself hadn't even noticed. And this recognition opens not just a door, but a new way of walking within the financial world. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject. When we begin to see the truth behind this universe, we realize that there is a kind of invisible division separating two completely different worlds. On one side are the beginners, the majority who still depend on standard products, offers embellished with pretty words, and fees that no one explains properly. These are people who, even with the best intentions, are still being treated as customers and not as real investors. Their experience is guided by screens, ready-made simulations, and generic speeches, as if the market were saying, "Here's what everybody, it might." On the other hand, there's another world. The world of closed doors, discreet conversations, and opportunities that never appear for those who haven't yet developed the right mindset. It's in this world that private invitations emerge, mentorships where decisions are made behind the scenes, direct access to managers who speak the hidden truth not found in any course, and investments that will never be announced on Google. And it's curious to see how this turning point happens so quietly. There's no fanfare, no announcement, no sign on the door saying, "From here on, only for prepared investors." It's a much more subtle, almost psychological process. When someone reaches 250K, it's not just about having money. It's about the emotional impact of knowing you've crossed a point of maturity that few actually reach. It's at this moment that market professionals start looking at you differently, as if there's finally reciprocity. It's here that the investor stops being a client and starts being a partner. And that changes everything. Partners receive filtered opportunities, real advice, sincere warnings about risks, and above all, access to decisions that aren't made for the masses. The magic isn't in the number itself, but in what it represents. That's why I say that 250K isn't a prize or an instant VIP pass. It's a filter. It separates those who are still looking for shortcuts from those who have already understood the importance of discipline, gradual building, and a long-term mindset. And as this understanding sets in, you begin to notice how the game is structured to test your consistency. Those who aren't ready give up halfway through. Those who are prepared continue accumulating, improving their decisions, creating protection, and above all, learning to recognize real opportunities from traps that look like opportunities. And when you realize this, you understand there's an even bigger revelation. It's not the market that changes when you reach 250K. It's you. Your journey changes. Your choices change. Your way of analyzing risks transforms. And, without realizing it, you no longer look at the market as someone trying to get in. You start to look at it as someone who finally belongs. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding the difference between these two worlds allows you to see why certain doors only open when you demonstrate, with actions and not words, that you are ready to walk through them. If this passage made sense to you, leave a comment below. I'm on this journey too. When you truly understand what it means to have accumulated $250,000, you realize that this number isn't just a financial result. It's a true reflection of your mindset. It shows nights when you chose to save instead of spend, moments when you relinquished immediate impulses to make choices aligned with your long-term journey, situations where you controlled anxiety and maintained discipline even when everything seemed at a standstill, and the market observes this behavior from afar, almost silently. Because unlike what many imagine, financial respect isn't born when he speaks. Those who want to get rich, but when you prove, behind the scenes of your life, that you can maintain consistency even without applause. Those who reach that level have not only accumulated money, they have accumulated maturity. And that is what separates the vast majority of those who are merely curious from the few who truly have skin in the game. Sharkston always says that before looking at your net worth, he looks at your behavior. And that makes a lot of sense, because a net worth of $250,000 only exists when you've learned to deal with frustrations, unexpected adjustments, tempting opportunities that needed to be refused, and those uncomfortable decisions that required courage and focus. It's a type of internal transformation that many people don't see, but that leaves deep marks on how you perceive risk, security, and the choices that shape your financial life. That's why, when an experienced investor extends an invitation, they're not testing your money. They're recognizing your mindset. It's not about quantity, it's about identity. And that's why the market starts treating you differently. Not because you've become rich, but because you've become predictable in the best possible way. Someone capable of staying the course, someone who doesn't crumble at the first obstacle, someone who makes decisions based on strategy and not emotion. And it's precisely this rare consistency that makes older investors open up space for you. It's not favoritism. It's not closing doors. It's natural selection. It's as if they were saying, it's not that we don't want you. It's that we were waiting for you to be ready. And when that finally happens, the dynamics change. The conversations change. The opportunities change. The way you are seen changes. The most interesting thing is that this change doesn't happen noisily. It doesn't come with an announcement, a seal, or a certificate. It happens from within. It's almost like walking through a door that's always been there, but only materializes for those brave enough to walk towards it. And when you walk through, you immediately realize that inside, the game is no longer about seeking approval. It's about making a statement. And that brings a much greater sense of emotional belonging than any graph, table, or strategy can offer. Because in a way, you stop being just someone who wants to prosper and become someone who demonstrates every day that they deserve to be in the circle of the most serious decisions. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this psychological transition shows why some never get there, and why others, even with little, manage to move forward without going back. Comment below. That makes sense to me. When you finally cross that 250K mark, you realize something is changing, even if no one says anything directly. It's almost as if the market starts whispering truths that previously seemed invisible. Suddenly, those doors that seemed locked begin to open without warning, and you realize that there was a movement happening behind the scenes all along. But it only reveals itself to those who have already proven consistency. It's no exaggeration. Opportunities that previously seemed untouchable begin to appear with a higher minimum entry fee, not because they are exclusive by whim, but because they require real commitment, deeper analysis, and above all, financial maturity. At that point, you stop being someone who needs to ask to join and become someone who receives invitations to participate. And these invitations don't arrive through advertising campaigns or flashy announcements. They arrive in more intimate conversations, in small meetings, in calls where the language is direct and straightforward. Access to private groups emerges, mentorships where every word counts, rooms where strategists reveal the hidden truth about how capital really grows. You realize that there's a layer of investments that isn't available to those who are still building their first 50K or 100K. Not out of disdain, but because these opportunities require a different understanding of risk, patience, and gradual building. And when managers start including you in these conversations, you feel that something has changed within you as well. At the same time, the investments that come to you are already pre-filtered. It's no longer that chase after promises or that insatiable search for the chance of a lifetime. These are concrete proposals with a solid structure, a real track record, analyzed by people who have been in the market for decades. And that's when you understand one of the greatest revelations of the journey. The game changes when you stop looking for opportunities, and they start looking for you. Because when you've accumulated 250K with discipline and clarity, the market sees you as someone who has already made complex decisions and remained steadfast, someone capable of sustaining a strategy without getting lost in anxiety or haste. And perhaps the most transformative thing of all is networking. Not that forced networking at events full of people trying to impress, but real networking with people who have already made it and speak openly about the decisions that shaped their lives. These conversations change your mindset because they show that nobody grows alone and that there is a circle of people who experience wealth building as a journey, not as a leap. And when you enter that circle, you realize that 250K was just the beginning of an exponential curve, the point where human effort begins to be surpassed by the silent work of your own money, as if it came to life and began to do for you what previously depended only on sweat and discipline. It's at this moment that you look back and realize it wasn't just your net worth that grew. It was you. Your mindset changed. Your choices became sharper. Your vision more strategic. The emotional impact of this transformation is inevitable because you feel you're walking on terrain that once seemed distant, and now it's part of your natural path. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when you understand what really happens after $250,000, you begin to see that the next level is more about maturity than about numbers. Comment below. That makes sense to me. Reaching $250K isn't a sudden event, a magical leap, or unusual luck. It's a silent process, built decision by decision, almost always away from the spotlight. And that's precisely why so few people get there. Because the journey requires a change in mindset that doesn't happen overnight. It begins when you realize that discipline isn't punishment, it's freedom. When you understand that eliminating financial traps isn't about losing pleasure, it's about gaining space for better choices. And when you finally accept that ignoring shortcuts doesn't delay you, it protects you. Those who try to skip steps always return to the starting point. Those who respect their own pace advance steadily. The first major milestone on this journey is always the same, the 100K mark. This number has a huge emotional impact because it's when you realize for the first time that your accumulated effort is becoming something visible. But more than that, the first 100K reveals who you've become. It reveals that you've learned to say no to the superfluous, that you've learned to deal with the anxiety of wanting to see quick results, that you held on tight when it seemed like nothing was happening. This maturity creates such a solid foundation that the path to 250K becomes faster than you imagine. Not because time changes, but because you change. Sharkston always repeats that the market doesn't reward impulsive people. It rewards those who know how to wait, who know how to prioritize, who see the long term, even when the short term screams. And that's why he looks at you, at each stage of this journey, as a guide who recognizes effort, not just numbers. His phrase echoes in the minds of those who are close to getting there. I only call those who have proven they are ready. And you, are you getting close? This question isn't provocation, it's a mirror. It forces you to look at your own recent decisions and see if they align with the person you want to become. The most profound transformation happens when you understand that accumulating wealth isn't a race against time, but a dance with the right choices. Sometimes you accelerate, sometimes you slow down, sometimes you need to step back to correct course. But especially after $100,000, something different happens. You start to trust yourself more. You begin to realize that you no longer make decisions based on the fear of losing, but on the clarity of what you want to build. And this clarity is what opens up space for real growth. It's what diminishes the importance of momentary temptations and increases the value of your future. And when that mindset clicks, the door that seemed distant begins to draw closer. You realize that it's not the wealth that grants you access. It's the person you've become by accumulating it. And that revelation changes everything. Because that's exactly when you feel ready to enter environments that previously seemed unreachable, including the much talked about Shark Tank. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding what the next step is after this maturity can completely transform how you approach wealth building. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. And if you've made it this far, I can tell this topic resonated with you in a different way. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you something very directly and naturally. If this content made sense, if it opened up a new perspective, or simply helped you see your financial journey more clearly, please subscribe to the channel. This isn't just a symbolic gesture. It shows me that this type of conversation has real value for you, and that it's worthwhile to continue delving deeper into these topics. Take advantage of this opportunity and leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end. Just so I know you've been with me on this whole journey. These little signs create a huge connection between us and help build a community of people who truly want to grow. And of course, if the video has been helpful so far, please leave a like. It's not just a number. It helps this type of message reach more people who need to hear it, just like you needed to hear it one day. Now before you go, there's a video here that perfectly complements this topic and delves even deeper into this growth mindset. Click on it and continue with me there, because your journey is just beginning.